Hello. Welcome to the beginning of our new series of videos. We are going to be starting a new series, and we're taking an inventory of all of my fountain pens that have a flexi nib. And that will be mostly vintage pens because I've got about 15 vintage pens with flex nibs and 4 modern ones. So yes, and we won't be able to cover all of them in one video, so we're going to do a part 1, part 2, and so on. We're going to go through each pen starting from the most flexible to the least flexible. We're going to use rhodia paper. I'm going to write in this, and inks. We're going to use different inks because some of them are inked up and some of them are not. So some of them I'll be dipping. So we'll just use different inks, and I'll say what ink we're using each time. All right, and lastly, what we're going to talk about. So for each pen will have its turn to be discussed, and I'll try to keep the discussion points consistent for each pen. We'll have short opinion time for the pen, and then quickly I'll move into the specs, as especially the nib, because that's what this is all about, and the flexiness of it. So we'll do the nib width and then the nib flexibility. So the width, as far as is it fine, medium, broad, and or double fine or double broad, and then the flexibility. And I know there's different camps as far as what we call different levels of flex, but this is my channel, so I get to call the shots. So we are going to go with wet noodle as the most flexible, and then under that is superFlex, and then full flex, and then medium / semi-flex, and then lastly is slight flex. And that goes on like a 1 to 100 scale. So 1, slight flex, 1 through 30, and then like 31 to 60 is like medium to semi-flex, and then 61 to 79 is full flex, 71 to 80 super flex, and then 81 to 100 is wet noodle. Wet noodle is the most flexy. We can go over what each of those mean. So the wet noodle is a nib that flexes a lot with very little to no pressure put on it. Super flex is a nib that flexes a lot with very little pressure put on it, but a little bit. And then a full flex is a nib that flexes a considerable amount with a little bit of pressure, or some pressure. And then medium to semi-flex is a nib that flexes noticeably with a lot of pressure. And then a slight flex is a nib that flexes barely with a lot of pressure. Once we're done with that, then we will move on to the writing sample. And our writing sample will consist of the name of the pen and the specs, the width and the flexibility, and then 2 sentences. The quick brown fox, I'll write that out twice. And I say twice because One time I'll write it and make it as flexi as the pen allows for. And then I'll flex it again. I'll write it again without flex, or trying not to flex the pen, just to show whether or not it can be used for, daily use, and just to show if that pen's, well rounded and it can be used. It has other attributes besides just being flexi. Some pens are have a fine point that's really beautiful. Same thing with the broad point or a stub nib. Those can be very beautiful without flexing. So I just want to show that where appropriate. So yeah. All right, and so that is what this little series is going to be about. If you're interested, and I guess we'll get started now. Here's our rhodia paper. Got lines. I'm just going to stick this in here. There we go. Oh, I gotta show you guys this. I have my pens in this little thing. I made it. It's kind of cute. Isn't that cool? I made it out of a washcloth. And I put some little ribbons on the sides. I can just tie it right up. Cute, right? I thought so. I was like, oh, I can't wait to show it on my channel. They're in there too. As long as you don't go throwing it like a football, they're not going to come out. Anyway, that's where I put my little pens. If you guys want me to show you how I made it and do a video on it, I will. Let me know in the comments. Okay. All right. Starting off with this guy. I'd say this is a medium. The nib width. Nib width is a medium, I think. And we can tell better when I'm writing with it. And the flexiness on this, I think this is a wet noodle. I'm not sure though. If you guys have some other suggestions, or you think, oh, you know what, I think you think it's something else, please let me know. It could be a superFlex, but it's either a wet noodle or a superFlex. It's hard to write with it without flexing it though, so that's why I'm putting it in the wet noodle category. Oh, it's a lever fill. I have not put a sack in it though, so I'm dipping it. And yeah, I don't really have anything to say about it. It's a vintage pen, of course. Yeah, it's a Waterman vintage pen. It's a 52. And that's about that. Sometimes the two pens are not alike, though. If you go for another 52, you think, wow, I have a 52. I love how these write. Let me buy this. You don't get the same experience, and then you think you're gonna get the same experience, and you don't. I've been filling this with Fountain Pen Revolutions Royal Flush Blue.
So we are going to give the